Hey folks, this is Shane from Performance EV. Today we're trying to finish off the interior of our Porsche 911. Hey folks, welcome to the channel. Thanks so much for watching. This is my project to put a Nissan Leaf motor into a Porsche 911. The last few weeks we've been concentrating a lot on the motor itself, or how it's actually going to fit in the Porsche, but there's still a bunch of projects on the car itself that need to be dealt with. Well, they don't need to be dealt with, I just want to do them, so I'm happy to drive the car once it's up and running. So while we're taking a little break from doing the work to fit the motor, I wanted to finish off the interior. A few videos ago I ripped out the old beige interior and put a new dark interior in place in the car, but there were a couple of components that I didn't have. Now I've managed to get my hands on one or two items, and then for the items that I haven't managed to get a hold of, I'm actually just going to leather paint the remaining trim panels and put them back in the car so that we'll get it looking a bit more complete. So yeah, join me as we try and tidy up this old Porsche. Okay, so here we have the one of the interior leather pieces, obviously in the Savannah beige leather. I don't want to go trying to track down each of these individual pieces, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint them all. This is the cover of the storage unit that sits under the armrest. So we're going to basically clean off the layer of sealant and colorant that's on top of this, right the way around, making sure to kind of get into these areas here, and then we're going to use the paint on it. So it's pretty grubby to begin with. It's not in amazing nick, but hopefully by cleaning it ourselves and then repainting it, we'll actually effectively be restoring it. So we're going to use a bit of leather cleaner first to get off the heavy grime, and then the isopropanol alcohol to get off the actual colorant and sealant that's on it. Then we'll let it dry for a bit, and then we'll use the self-seal colorant that we've got here, which is a black. I've added a small hint of blue to it, blue tint to it, just to make it match in better with the rest of the interior. So let's get to it. So I'm going to put this aside, let it dry properly before we try and paint it, and move on to another couple of pieces. Okay, so now that's been cleaned off, there's still a bit of colour on it, but most importantly there's no real sealant, and there's nothing coming off when we rub it, so it should be able to take the colorant. So I've got my self-seal colorant here. If I was going to do a larger, harder wearing area like a seat or something like that, I'd probably do a multi-stage process, and I'd also go far deeper with the cleaning off the old paint. These are relatively light wearing surfaces, so I'm just going to go with the simple option. So all we're going to do here is apply thin coats of the colorant using a sponge and build it up in layers. I don't want to rub the paint off this side, so I'll do the underside afterwards. What I'm going to do at this point is let this current layer dry in the sun for a few minutes, move on to the next ones, and we'll just iterate through them. one trick you can use to speed up the drying process is to use a bit of heat. I've got a heat gun here just to show it. It's a warm enough day though, so I don't really need to. But you can use a hairdryer or something like that just as easily. The final layer of paint's dried. I'm actually really happy with how these turned out for an hour or two's work. Just yeah, seems to have adhered pretty well, so we'll let these dry a little longer and then we'll get them back in the car. So we're going to do something similar with the handbrake. It's seen, looks like a fair bit of abuse in its life, rather worn in terms of the colouring. I've already degreased it, which has improved it quite a bit, but obviously wrong colour for the interior now, and there are a few scratches and tears on it. So we're going to do some repairs on this. First thing we're going to do is just mask off the area and make sure that whatever we do isn't going to damage any other parts of the car. Alright, now that we're going to have that taped off, we're going to address this tear here and these indentations. So for the tear, we'll use some glue, just try and get it down and then maybe sand it smooth if it needs to be. For the indentations, we'll use some heavy duty filler. This tear, I think we'll just actually need to fill, but we'll see where we get to with that. Alright, so while that's drying, we'll do some of the other bits that need to be filled very quickly. That's dried off a bit. We're going to come in with some sandpaper and just sand it smooth. The leather can take the rubbing, but the filler should grind down a bit. We're going to go and get rid of the kind of paint and surface sealers and stuff on the leather and get it down to a point where it can be easily painted. Right, and now we're going to start painting. So we'll do thin layers with some drying time in between. We'll probably use the heat gun to kind of speed up the drying time a little bit. And we're just going to use a simple sponge to apply it. Colour's been applied, so we're just going to give it a quick once over with a cloth, just make sure nothing's still damp. That's looking good. So now we can remove the masking tape and see how it looks. So now we have seats, handbrake, gear shifter that all look the part, and we're working our way through the rest of the panels, and we'll reinstall those once they're ready. That's going to stand out like a sore thumb. So fortunately, I've managed to get my hands on a 3-spoke steering wheel. So let's take a look at that and see what we need to do to get it in perfect condition. So there's our 3-spoke steering wheel. Tiptronic one as well, so fits with this car. We won't need the Tiptronic controls once we convert it to electric, but that means we can use this for use them for something else. So the steering wheel itself is actually in really good condition. It'll need a bit of a clean up on the vinyl parts and then also on the leather. The leather's obviously got about, I think, 50,000 miles worth of sweat and grease build-up, so I need to give it a clean, get the degreaser on it, and then leave that to do its work. But why don't we get started on the process now? Alright, so here's our steering wheel. It's going to be a few different things we need to do to it to get it looking spot on. The airbag is all intact, so we'll just need to clean up the cover, and also the surrounds here and here with just a general good quality interior cleaner that will work on the vinyl. And then for the leather around the outside, we're going to use a leather cleaner, then degrease it a couple times, and then use the leather cleaner again. Overall, that'll take probably a day or two to get done, because you need to leave things like the degreaser to work for a while. But let's get started. So it's not pretty, but that's the degreaser doing its work, drawing out any oils and greases that have gotten into the leather. Hopefully it'll allow us to have a slightly less shiny steering wheel at the end of it all. So we'll just leave that like that to do its work. Come back to it, brush it off once it's all fully dried, give it another clean, and see if we need to reapply any more. Alright, so this is starting to dry out, so we're going to take a look and see how it's doing. I'm just going to work on one section, and we'll give that section an additional clean if we need to. It's starting to have a positive effect. Some of the sheen's gone off the steering wheel, but I think I'm going to brush off the rest of this stuff and apply another load. So we're just going to use a regular interior shampoo on this, because to be honest it doesn't get a huge amount of wear unless someone's beeping the horn a lot. So here's the steering wheel after a couple of days with the degreaser on it. I'm going to take it aside, brush it all off, and then give it a really good clean. We'll see how it turns out. So now it's time to replace the steering wheel. Didn't really attach this in properly after I put the dash in, so the airbag should just pop out. We should just be able to pull it out. Okay, and now we'll start putting the new steering wheel in. There we have it, our steering wheel's in. I think it really looks the part. Okay, so we're going to install some of the components that we just painted. Another cosmetic task I want to get done today is to polish up these headlamps. So we need to first off get them out of the car. In order to get the headlamp out, there's actually a special tool for it. So you need to pull back the liner here, pop out the cover for the access hole, and then you insert the headlight removal tool into it, and then you turn the tool. The headlight comes out, and then you can pull it out the rest of the way. That's a single unit. We're going to run through a bunch of grits of wet and dry paper first, and then we're going to use some compound and then some polish. So let's get going. Alright, so we've polished this up to 2,500 grit, and now we're going to go after it with some polishing compound. Alright, that's looking so much better and clearer than before. Hopefully the lights will look much better on it now, and I won't have any trouble trying to pass the MOT or anything like that. Now it's time to do the left hand side. Well, thanks for joining us on that little adventure. It's the first time I've really used any products to kind of leather paint an interior. I've read up a lot about it, and to be honest, it sounds really cool. I mean, you can basically, if you've got a car and you want to turn it pretty much any color you want, you can do it with the products that are out there. I've gone with a product that seems to be, pretty good quality. That seems to be a very well established company, but it's actually the kind of the most basic product in their range. It's for doing small repairs or small panels, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out. So it'd be really interesting to see what their more professional quality products could do for an interior, and maybe I'll do something like that in the future. The seats that I took out of the car are actually a step above the seats that I've put in, but just the wrong color. So maybe in the future I'll do a video on bringing them into line with the interior so I can fit them back in. And it was also great to get some work done on the headlights. Again, first time I've really done any sort of restoration on headlights. I'm pretty happy with how they've turned out. I might give them another going over with the polish and compound on an actual kind of powered sanding pad or powered polishing pad, just to really get that shine up. And then, of course, I'm really happy with how that steering wheel looks. It's a big improvement on the old one. But yeah, enough about me rambling about how happy I am with how the car looks. Thank you so much for joining me on this. And if you've liked what you've seen, please do consider subscribing to the channel if you're not already subscribed, or if you are, feel free to leave a comment or like the video. We'll be back in the next video, probably looking at some more of the mechanical stuff and seeing if we can actually get the engine into place. But till then, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.